You're listening to Three Kitchens, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. Join your hosts, Heather Dyer, Sarah Sundgren, and Aaron Walker. You never know what they're going to make next.
It's a conspiracy!
All right. It's a Conspiracy is the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind selected conspiracy theories, alternative accounts, legends, myths, and more. We do our best to present these without coloring them with our opinion until the end, where we let our feelings fly. We also do beer reviews, chat about geek culture, and whatever else strikes our fancy. Good times. And we're a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported.
Welcome, Three Kitchen listeners. Another episode. We have nothing really to talk about in our preamble because we have very boring lives at the moment.
I have nothing happening in my life, so I could talk about that.
That there's nothing happening?
How's it going? Nothing's happening.
Awesome.
I am so behind with, not behind, but just not on top of things. I shouldn't say behind. It's not so bad.
Let's just say not much else is going on. Let's just dive right in. But that's not always a bad thing.
I wouldn't say they're boring. We're
busy,
just
but not
busy with things that nobody wants to hear about.
Mundane lives.
That's right. So we're just going to skip that bit and we're just going to go straight to food because everybody likes to hear about food.
Yes.
All right, let's get into this. So I am going to cook for you. Bánh Xèo.
I'm sorry, what?
Bánh Xèo. It is a crispy Vietnamese crepe.
Oh, okay. I thought you said on sale. I'm like, on sale?
On sale.
What does that mean?
No, nothing's on sale right now. Everything is expensive.
That's true.
Bánh Xèo. Bánh, I believe it means pretty much anything with flour.
Okay.
Something made of flour. And xèo is meant to imitate the sound that the batter makes when you put it in the pan. It kind of sizzles. So that's the name of it.
So you're making flour sizzle.
Sizzling flour.
Sizzling flour, yeah. So I don't know if you've ever eaten them. Have you?
No, you've spoken about this, but I don't recall, no.
Nope. There was at one time, a few years ago, there was a little restaurant in Kensington. This is what they served. It was it's kind of like street food because it's ends up being like a crepe and you basically eat it with your hands.
Okay.
But it's savory.
And this is Vietnamese, right?
Vietnamese, yep. Okay. And my husband and I used to go there for lunch sometimes because it's super tasty. Mm-hmm. But then it closed, as things tend to do. It came and it went, and I'm sure you can get them somewhere. We'd have to look it up.
I feel like I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to let you lead me through the recipe, and then I'll save them for the end because I might just be asking them before you've said anything. So
yeah, I'm kind of excited because I don't know anything about this. So
good. This is kind of fun. Okay,
teach us.
So they are golden in color, crispy on the outside, and it looks a bit like an omelet because it's like a yellow color, but there's no eggs in it. It's because of turmeric. Turmeric makes them a golden color.
Okay.
They are traditionally made with rice flour, but you can also add like a all-purpose wheat flour to it, 3-to-1, like 3 parts rice to 1 part wheat flour.
Okay.
Which apparently helps it hold up a little bit better, especially if you want to make it ahead and then warm it up or have leftovers and warm them. They hold their shape and they hold up a little bit better with the wheat flour in them.
Right.
So I'm going to use that. It seems to be a common way to make them. I would think if you went to Vietnam and you had them traditionally made, they wouldn't have the all-purpose flour in there. But ideally, you want to make it and eat it. You don't want to save it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The crepe batter has flour, rice flour, and all-purpose flour, salt, turmeric, water. Then you're adding in your kind of like fillings, right? It all goes in with the batter. So typically you'd have bean sprouts, mung bean sprouts, chopped scallions, shrimp, maybe pork. That's kind of the traditional weight, but I think you could probably put whatever, like if you had maybe leftover roast chicken you want to put in there, or I haven't decided exactly what I'll put in it when I make it, but something. Okay, so I believe the way it works is you put your, like, say you've got your shrimp and pork and whatever in the pan, put your batter over top,
right,
and it's thin, so it should be making that sizzling. It's a super thin batter, and along the edges you want it to kind of crisp around the edges. So I watched a couple videos where they actually squirt oil around the edge while it cooks so that it gets extra crispy right around the edge. And then, you know, when it's like set, then you flip it in half when it's cooked. I don't think it takes long to cook. You kind of flip the one side over the other side, which is why it ends up looking like an omelet, because it's like a half pan shape.
Right.
And then when you serve it with fresh mint, cilantro, if you like cilantro, not for Aaron, but for the rest of us. And there was something else. Now, was it in this recipe? I was going to ask you about, Sarah, if you knew. It was an herb I hadn't heard of. Vietnamese perilla.
You've talked about it before.
You guys have seen me eat it, and you've asked me questions about it over Facebook, but perilla leaf is like a kind of like, it tastes like a basil leaf or basil minty leaf, like something in between both of those. And you can get that at the Korean store.
Oh, okay. They say that mint is the must-have. Must have mint with it. Other herbs, if you have the perilla or cilantro or whatever you like, is additional, optional. So often what you do is then you cut off a piece of it or wrap it in with herbs into a lettuce leaf and eat it like a little lettuce. So you're eating it with your hands. You're kind of taking a piece, wrapping it in lettuce, dipping it in. There's a sauce I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
And eating it like that. The other way to do it, which sounds like it depends which part of Vietnam you go to, you would take a small rice wrapper, soften it up at the table, take your rice wrapper, put your piece of crepe plus your herbs, wrap it all up, and then dip it in the sauce, which I think would keep it tidier, maybe. Either way, it's finger food. It like all sounds dipping. Good. Yeah. So the sauce is called, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Nok cham.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the sauce?
We talked about that during the fusion episode, remember?
Am I pronouncing it right?
I don't know. That part, I don't know.
I'm trying to find the ingredients. I believe it's fish sauce, sugar, some kind of citrus, like lime or lemon, water. You can also add in chili if you want, maybe garlic if you want. I think it's like kind of what flavor you want out of it. Kind of typical with dumplings or with. Right. And it's just a Asian dipping sauce, right? I'm sure there's lots of different versions of it.
I can't wait to have this.
It's a lunch, like a finger food kind of thing. I think it'd be fun to eat together as you're kind of making it as you go. So maybe we'll see how things go. Maybe by the time I make it, we can get together and eat together.
Yeah, totally.
So there you go. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a simple ingredients. I think it's a fairly simple technique. It might take me 1 or 2 to get the hang of how thin. Yeah, like to get it thin and crispy. And
will you use your cast iron pan or just a non-stick skillet?
Yeah, good question. It seems to be a non-stick, like the way it's everything that I've seen, they use those non-stick pans. I don't really have one of those pans, so I'm hoping it would work in my cast iron skillet.
Do you want to borrow one from me? I've got 3.
Okay.
Like a frying pan, right?
Yeah, just like the one with the non-stick coating.
Do you want a small one? Like a small?
Yeah, I would think you'd want it reasonably small. Okay. You can always just make more of them. Instead of giant ones, just make small ones, right?
Yeah. Oh, this sounds really good.
They're very tasty. And it's another use for all that turmeric. Remember when I was telling you guys that I had that giant bag of turmeric for some reason? I think I put it on my online grocery order one time and I thought it was like a regular size bag, and it was like the giant bag of turmeric that I have. I had to stash it down in the basement in my storage. Yeah. So that because I had no room in my cupboard for it. That's how big this bag is. And I don't use turmeric for a lot of stuff.
I think I already stole some from you, or you borrowed some to me.
I think possibly. So there you go. Simple lunch.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Oh, I think that sounds like a yummy snack, because if you could make those and then, My kids are increasingly hungry when they come home from school. I don't know if anyone else is noticing this year.
Yeah.
My kids are plowing through their lunches, and by the time they get home, so freaking hungry.
But Heather, I just want getting back to this pancake. This is kind of different from the pancake you're talking about because this is all-purpose flour all the way. But Koreans have a pancake called pajan, and it kind of reminds me of that pancake when you said shrimp and green onions, because that's what is usually in this pancake, and it's so good. And then there's a dipping sauce as well.
Yeah.
That has like the acidic kind of vinegary taste and the savory and all that stuff. And just now I'm like hungry for pajan, but I want to taste this stuff. Yeah.
We
I
can
think
make that one another
great.
day and we could compare.
I have a recipe for this in a cookbook that I've looked at a million times. And been like, no, not this week. Kind of like just I keep pushing it off.
What, the Vietnamese pancakes?
Yeah, I think they're called Vietnamese pancakes in the book too. But yeah, same ingredients, yellowish color.
I've never come across this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent. Okay.
I've been looking forward to this.
I'm excited. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utility providers in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities.
Winter is coming, and energy usage for all Albertans will be increasing. So now is a great time for listeners to look at their utility bills and ensure they are on the best plan. Albertans have a choice of utility providers.
Park Power is happy to provide free, no obligation comparisons. If you decide to switch providers, it's easy, and you can feel good knowing you are supporting a local business and helping to give back to our communities with your utility bill. Learn more at parkpower.ca. And here we are again. We're going to talk about Bánh Xèo, which we had for lunch. So it was like hot off the pan.
Oh, yeah.
Vietnamese crepe. Okay, let me tell you about the recipe. So I found this on a website called hungryhui.com. Hui spelled Huy. It's a Vietnamese name. I had to look up how to pronounce it because I thought it was hi, like guy.
Yeah, okay, right.
But then again, guy actually should be pronounced Guy because it's French. And so Hui kind of sounds similar. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Hungry Hui. Sorry, Hui. I'm bastardizing your name here. Okay, so in your batter, you've got rice flour, all-purpose flour, more weighted toward the rice flour. So there's like 255 grams of rice flour, 85 grams of all-purpose. Turmeric, water, coconut cream. I think you could use coconut milk if you didn't have cream, a teaspoon of salt, and that's it. And you make it in advance. So you want it to sit in your fridge for 3 hours or overnight.
Okay.
Or I think it could sit longer as well. And then you're good to go. So it's super quick, easy to mix up, not very many ingredients.
It's kind of nice having it pre-mixed so that you just pop it out and start going.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because more of the work really is, aside from making it, is prepping all the other little fillings and stuff that goes alongside.
Yes.
And then you make your dipping sauce, which, now what do we call this again? What is it, Sarah?
Nok cham.
Nok cham. So I used the one again that Hui had on his website. And if you go to these recipes, he has a lot of information. I know it's kind of a pain sometimes to scroll through people's blogs, but actually he has a lot of really good instruction and like troubleshooting, like if it's not crispy, what might be wrong with my batter, that kind of stuff. So the first time especially, it's actually quite helpful to read the whole kind of thing. Okay, nak cham. Water, sugar, fresh squeezed lime or lemon juice, and fish sauce are kind of your basic ingredients. And you can just, it's to taste, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of, you could use the basic recipe, but then adjust it. Like I liked it a little more lime, a little less sweet, like it's just kind of what you like. And then you can put in minced garlic. We had garlic and chili in ours, which I like as well. So when I made it for the kids, I left out the chili because they didn't like they were like, what are these hot peppers floating in here? They didn't like that so much.
They're always afraid of the red things. Oh my God, it's red.
Okay, what you're going to do is in your nonstick pan, put a little bit of oil and your filling. So whatever you're going to put in there. He says traditionally shrimp, pork, onion, and he says mung beans are common. I didn't have mung beans. And so we did the pork, shrimp, onion. I had, according to his directions, I followed his directions and I boiled my pork in advance and then sliced it thin. I had small shrimp that were frozen. They were pre-cooked frozen, but you can do whatever shrimp because they cook super fast. Warm those things kind of up in the pan, then put your batter in, swirl it around so it covers the bottom. You don't want it thick.
Right.
And then it kind of crisps around the edges. And we put bean sprouts on the one half, flipped it over. It looks like an omelet because it's yellow, but there's no eggs in it. And what we had with it was lettuce, fresh mint. Sarah and I had cilantro. Aaron did not. And spring onion. And Hui says the vital green is mint.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else is just whatever you like. And you kind of take all that stuff together, take a chunk of your crepe, some of your greens, and rewrap them in rice paper.
Yes.
And dip them in our nak cham. And
It's so good.
Still dreaming about that lunch.
ooh.
Yeah. So I have to say I was a little bit skeptical, or not skeptical, but timid.
Oh.
Because it had shrimp. So you know me, I'm a little bit of a shrimp scaredy. So I was like, oh, I don't know how all these flavors are going to go together. And then the mint, I was like, I don't really see how this is all coming together. But wrapped up, oh my God. Like I wanted to eat more and more. And you had a ton of batter left. And I kept saying I was going to come over after lunch and come and have more. And the clock hit 1:30 and I looked at it and my stomach growled and I was like, man, I really wish I was going over to Heather's for more. So good. So delicious.
Very good.
I thought it was really interesting that you didn't just eat the final product as is. It was just kind of like another ingredient that goes into your...
And you could.
That you kind of assembled everything how you wanted in the end.
Yeah.
Like, it was I really liked that.
You could eat it I did the next day, I just made it because I had like the very last batter. So it does keep. Next day, it was just as good. And I finished off the batter. It makes so much. This recipe is huge. And I just had the basic thing with some greens thrown on top and I ate it with a fork and a knife. I didn't even put sauce on it. And it was still like delicious.
So good. I went home and I made a batch because I talked to my kids about it and they're like, that sounds like something we should be eating. So we had it for dinner and then we had it for breakfast. I didn't have any of the rice wraps. So we just ate it as is, like a crepe, and but I used chicken and shrimp instead because I didn't have any pork on hand, and it was so good, such a good recipe, easy, very easy.
Yeah, really easy, and like we said, it makes a ton. So he says it makes 12. I bet it made more than 12.
Oh yeah,
it was so much.
It was a lot. Yeah,
I almost would maybe cut it in half. To have one meal for 4 people. Like,
nah, just keep the batter and eat it forever.
I mean, really.
I thought it was a lot of batter, but oh man, was it ever good.
Oh, and that coconut milk flavor in there was so good. Oh, all of it just really went together so well. It was, Yeah,
you think because there's not much in it, like what would it taste like? What's it going to taste like? But somehow between the coconut and the turmeric, that's I guess where you get your flavor. Yeah,
and the trick is to make it really thin because I think the first one I made was a little thicker and it was still good, but that crispy edge is the key to so good. Just like a crepe. I wouldn't even call it a pancake. It's more like
it's thin. So you want your fillings to be small, and not very much. Like you're not putting a whole lot of stuff in there. It's not like an omelet that's like loaded and 2 inches thick. Like it's like very few things in the pan. And Hui has some very good photos on his page, so you can see like 3 little slices of onion and 2 little shrimp and a piece of pork, like very little in the pan because it's really about the crepe, right?
And he also said in his write-up that the traditional way to make this is without the flour.
Yeah, just with rice flour.
And so it's a crispiness in a different way with the rice flour. So if people can't eat like wheat, there is a way of doing this for people who are sensitive to wheat or celiacs or whatnot. So this works for them too. Really good recipe. Try it. Try it at home.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good, so simple. There's almost like, what more can we say about it? It's easy, and it's so fresh with like all the greens and
Mhm.
herbs, and
Yeah.
like definitely get the fresh mint. And I haven't tried it
Yes.
with the perilla leaf that he mentioned. I don't know if I've eaten it. Have I eaten it at your place, maybe, Sarah?
Maybe for a barbecue, you might have tried it, but I'm not sure.
Because I can't think of what it tastes like. It's not like a.
Tastes like basil. It kind of tastes like
Oh.
between a basil
Ooh.
and mint. So it's like
See, I think.
somewhere in between that flavor profile.
That would be really good in there.
Mhm. And I think even a Thai basil would be really yummy in there too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good to add in there.
Yeah, we were talking about maybe some mushroom,
Mhm.
or I mean, you
That's
could put
right.
you could put all kinds, whatever you like in there.
Mm.
I had one kid who really liked it and ate the whole thing, and the other one who was like, I don't really like this. He couldn't put his finger on it, but I realized afterward that it's the coconut, because he doesn't like coconut, and he can taste coconut in anything. Like when I think, it's like a coconut base chocolate tart, this one that I make that we all love, and to me it tastes like chocolate. You can't taste the coconut, but he is like, there's coconut in here.
Yeah.
He has like hypersensitivity to coconut. So I was like, oh, that's why he didn't like it.
Okay.
Darn.
No, my kids loved it. Loved it.
I'm gonna make it next week. I've
good.
got the ingredients on my list.
Yeah, it cooks up so fast, right? Like it
Mhm.
cooks up real quick, so you can just make them as you eat them. I don't know that
Yeah.
you'd necessarily want to make them in advance.
Yeah.
I did have one left over because we had them the same night for dinner, because I had so much batter. I was like, what are we going to do with this?
Mhm.
Plus, I wanted to eat up those bean sprouts
Yeah.
because,
Right. The beans.
they go
They
so
don't keep-
quickly.
Yeah.
The bean sprouts that I had so much trouble finding, and then Aaron,
The
them.
greatest search ever for bean sprouts.
like 4 or 5 stores, I think.
Citywide.
Yeah. And so I had one that was extra, and I ate it the next morning. I just kind of warmed it up, and it was still tastes great, but it's not crispy anymore.
Right,
Like
right.
when it's sitting a little bit, it doesn't stay crispy. So I would say the best is to eat them as you make them.
Mhm.
Like, don't even do all 4 or 5 at once. Do like one here, you eat
Yeah.
while I make the next one. Yeah.
That's what we did. Yeah.
And because the batter can sit for a long time, that's a good way to, it'll just keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make them as you want to eat them. Oh, so tasty.
So tasty. Oh my gosh, my tummy's my tummy's agreeing with you. So
Yeah.
tasty.
It's remembering the lunch.
Oh, yeah. That was delicious.
Thank you for lunch.
That was so
was
good.
You're welcome. That's it. So simple that nobody has an excuse not to make it. Go make it. Or if you see it on a menu and you're like, what's a bomb? Say, oh, what's this? Just order it, because
Yes.
it's darn good. And now for the fine print. We at Three Kitchens gratefully acknowledge we are telling these stories in the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We honor the rich tradition of oral storytellers on this land who have come before us. You can find pictures and recipe links on Instagram and Facebook at Three Kitchens Podcast. If you like and subscribe on your podcast player, that helps more people find us.
Delicious.